another episode of Sales and Marketing Secrets. And we are, again, going through a really special series called Real Entrepreneur with this podcast, where I am reaching out to some of the people I respect most in the real estate industry, some people that are either influencers, they're servicing the real estate industry in a big way, or they're running a team and servicing the industry, a combination of things. And I'm excited to bring Jeff Moore from OSiRS, because Jeff has not only been successful in real estate, but he found a really unique niche that so many people have a problem with, is solving it in a big way, having to do with helping you basically organize your systems so you can maximize the return on your investment with the systems that you're already paying for, which God knows everyone needs help with, if they're being honest. And but I really like Jeff's backstory a lot, and so I wanted to bring him on and have you guys hear Jeff's experiences and relate them back to what you should be doing right now in today's market with the shift happening right before our eyes. And so, Jeff, tell the world why the heck we decided, how did you get involved in real estate, right?
Yeah.
And then, like, what led up to taking on this monstrosity challenge that you that you're working on?
Well, I appreciate it, man. Thanks for the invite. This is an awesome, place to share this stuff. Hopefully it's helpful for a lot of people. My story is totally interesting because I went down the path of being a professional soccer coach. I played at a high level in college.
Cool.
And I, kind of a long story short, I was working as a snowboard instructor in Vail. And when I was coming back for the day, I got hit. I was helping somebody out of the ditch, and somebody slid off the road and tagged me. And so instantly, I was in ER, the whole 9 yards, right? And 12 surgeries over the course of 2 years, dislocated knees, everything, right? And not a lot of people know that about me. And it ruined my soccer career, obviously, overnight. And so I instantly went down to, and I thought it was one of the best things that ever happened to me, especially in hindsight, because it kind of forced the issue of like using your brain more than your physical abilities now. And so I went down the path of like coaching soccer. And so I have that knack of like, systems oriented, and I have that knack of like looking at it from a 10,000 foot view. And being a coach, I've got an A license in the game. And it was like, this isn't going to pay the bills, dude. I'm never going to, I have to work every weekend and nights. I'm like, screw this. What are we doing?
The reason why I'm laughing is because I was in phys ed and I had the same epiphany. So I keep going.
Yeah. And then before I know it, I'm like, okay, I have this knack of like, I'm the worst kind of employee because I try to look for problems to solve. Right. So I started plugging myself into different places, and I'm like, I just need to figure out my own thing. So I got into real estate, right? Pretty common story. And then I traded, soccer coaching until 8 o'clock at night for showings at 8 o'clock at night. And I'm like, what the hell am I doing here? And so it's like, okay, I need to put together the framework of building a business so that I can go to my kids' games and be available on the weekends and do all that. So instantly you think about, how am I going to build this business? And I'm just that, systems oriented, high C mentality, engineer type mindset. So I started to put together the systems for my real estate team and realized pretty quickly that, man, this is a need across the industry. A good friend of mine, a coach, was like, man, what you've built for your team, you should just be doing for other people. And I'm like, I did some research, and I'm like, I guess it is kind of a gap. So we went for it. And before you know it, we're working with some top teams, and it's been a lot of fun just solving problems for people in real estate. Because the cool thing about real estate is, it's a blessing and a curse. There's so much great technology. There's, so many apps, but the spaces in between the apps are where we struggle. Yeah. So we're trying to plug that void with helping, CRMs and tech companies while helping the clients and agents and teams. And so it's been a ton of fun, lots of learning, but I love building, businesses, and I love that knack for it. So that's kind of my background of how I got to here.
It's cool. I kind of got I got a little bit of a personal question along your journey.
Yeah.
What do you think what do you think people misunderstood about you the most as you were getting into real estate and then transitioning from a real estate to going and growing OSiRS?
It's I think they we don't understand, we don't learn to understand enough about each other to see who people really are, because this is most of the time this is our experience through a Zoom or a phone call, or maybe for a couple hours during a conference, and so I'm I think it's the highly sensitive there's a personality test out there that I took that's highly sensitive, but yet I'm this engineer like type mindset where it's like,
Yeah,
you could stick me behind a computer screen all day long and I'm fine, or
yeah,
on a fishing on a creek by myself all day, I'll be perfectly happy. But I take so much pride and ownership in what I do that you know it's hurtful, or it's if they don't understand why I'm doing it, or they don't see who I really am and it's critiqued, it's like, oh man, I take that like, wow, I can't
yeah.
sleep at night, I'm gonna go fix something until it's done right.
Right.
you
Because you take
know
so much pride into what you're doing. Yeah.
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 Yep.
Yeah. That's good. And I know that one of the things that I heard as you were talking is you had to reinvent yourself. And there's so
Yeah.
many people right now in some way, shape, or form, they're looking at what's happening in the economy. They're starting to feel different things. They're starting to feel things happen, and their business are being affected by it, and they're forced to make a decision and say,
Yeah.
what do I do? Right. And one of the things I love what you said is looking back in hindsight, this was one of the best things that happened to me.
Yep.
And so I think we got two choices. And what I loved about, as I was just listening to your story, what I love about is that, there's two types of people. There's one that could have been, there's a one type of person that's like, oh, woe is me. Like I have to go through all these major surgeries and I'm going to get hooked on drugs and feel horrible the rest of my life. And, but then there's the other type of person that you see it and you look at the positive, you make something better out of it. And that's what I heard about your story. And I want to encourage everybody listening, because the reality is that real estate's always going to change. Your
Mhm.
life circumstances are always going to change. And I find that when I do, what's been most interesting to me is I've been doing these interviews and asking people's backstories. Every single time somebody had to reinvent themselves, they had to change, they had to readjust, and they went through shit. They went through something that was like, but they came out better, and they found a way to either found a niche, retool. And so if you're listening to this, I just want to encourage you to lock into that mindset that Jeff just shared with you in a roundabout way, because that's what it's going to take to succeed. And it's not going to have to be any more difficult than step one, looking at your opportunities that are in front of you. Step two, what can you do that you're good at? Step three, once you found that niche, you just be determined to be the best at it.
Yep.
That's what I just heard about
Well,
your, like,
yeah.
yeah, go ahead. Yeah.
Well, and I was just gonna say, it's like these are the
And
cards that you're
outsource
dealt.
everything else. No.
Well, these are the cards that were dealt, right?
Yeah,
Like,
correct.
it's like as an athlete, you're trying to reach the highest level, and you're playing at a high level, and you just try to hang
Right.
on to that as long as you possibly can. You're not willing to let that past life have its funeral and move on, right? And I
So
was
true.
forced to. I was forced to,
Yeah,
and like that
so
that
true.
hard decision is what I'm thankful for. Was I'm not thankful for it to be her. I'm not thankful for it to be do all that. But what I'm thankful for is that it forced me to have to put that past life to bed and have a new one, right? And
Right.
so as market shifts, as things change on you, you can't. My best advice is have that past life funeral and move on. And that absolute thought process in your mind will help
I
you.
love it. Have the past life funeral. I love it. I'm gonna write that down. I love it.
Yeah,
Just right.
yeah,
Get it done. Move on.
yeah.
Cool.
That's right. I mean, it's been helpful in that regard as far as your mindset goes. These are the
Yeah.
cards you're dealt. You just got to deal with them and move on.
Who helped you through your transitions? Who have been a couple people that have been influential on
Um,
you? It could be books.
Definitely coaches, right? Lots of coaches, lots of high-minded people that like,
Yeah.
you could turn to, that gives you that level-headedness, right? Um, so the closest people around you, when it's not when you're going through your worst time, because a lot of people come around with that.
Yeah.
It's who's been there since then, right?
Yeah.
And those are the people I've gravitated towards. But yeah, the level-headed people around you that are willing to criticize you,
Yes.
those to me are the most valuable.
Yeah. It's one of the things I say all the time is like, it's not just the how, it's the who.
Yeah.
Right. And like when we're going to go through these we're learning, making adjustments, like you're going to get through whatever you're trying to get through so much faster if you just connect yourself with the who.
Yeah.
And not just the how. Where like, I don't know if you've made this mistake, but like I had to retrain my brain because I grew up very not so good environment as far as like financially and economically. And so like for me, I would almost like had this survival mentality. And then I moved into this perfection mindset where if I had to be like, it's up to me. And so what I would do is I'd go out and I'd buy the book, I'd go to the class, I'd go to the seminar. And my first reaction was always like, okay, let me figure out how to do this. Right. And that was one of my number one downfalls for the longest time is not transitioning from the how to the who fast enough. And I'm not saying that, and I want everyone to hear me clearly. I'm not saying you don't need to have an understanding about what you're doing or high level knowledge so you can hold the team or the vendor or the people accountable. But trying to become a master of everything, like kind of like what you're talking about. Yeah, I could sit there and I could read 42 books about what you do and eventually maybe someday figure it out. But why wouldn't I just go to you? You've already perfected the system. You're the who, right? And literally like within days, get all my stuff connected, get my life organized, get my business organized, my systems, my technology, and come up with a blueprint to start drawing more business from everything that I'm paying from my lead generation to my database, to my marketing, to all my systems. Right. So like, I think that for a lot of people that are here, like, I mean, I have conversations, they're fighting a hit, getting an admin, like, and they're looking at, and I look at like vendors like yours, and I've done the calculation on it before. If you have no idea how much money you're losing by your systems being fragmented,
Right.
like, I don't even know how you put an ROI on it. And so it's like, it's getting, I think it's just finding the balance between working within our budgets, that has to be there, but also just being real and saying, look, if I fix this and I find somebody else how to do this, yeah, I have less money, but how quickly can I make up for that? How many transactions can I make up for that? Worst case scenario to break even where I was. But more importantly, that's going to put you in a position to be able to go to the next level and scale. And you would never have that opportunity to do so, so
That's
like,
right. Yep.
Yeah.
And I mean, to piggyback on that too, it's like, you're trying to push yourself beyond who you are naturally and get out of your comfort zone. So use what other people have done as your benchmark, and you go, man, how have they dealt with a $45,000 a month budget?
Right.
Like psychologically, not just like, the actual pieces of it, but the fear of holding you back from pulling the trigger, right? That's so monumental of like, how do they do it? And there's how you can coach. Checking your ego to make sure you don't know all the answers, nor do you even probably know one. But if you can put yourself in their shoes on how do they deal with that, because we've all had to deal with that if we pushed ourselves beyond ourselves, and there's your step forward.
Yeah, I think that's the way it keeps going back. It's like I could sit there in a corner, like, and I've done this before, like where I'm like, I'm gonna figure this out. I'm gonna figure this out. I'm gonna figure this out. And literally, like, I've called a coach or a mentor or a vendor or an influencer when I'm sitting there trying to figure it out myself. One phone call, 5 minutes, breakthrough, next level. Like, and so like, that's why I'm so convicted about what you're talking about as far as like, when you say, hey, look, I've had great coaches, because, it's so good. It's so good. Quick question. This is something that's kind of random question, like nothing to do with the topic that we were talking about, just something fun for the viewers to get to know you a little bit. If you had to write a book tomorrow, like, and literally like you could do like, you could do nothing else until you finished it, like, what would you write about? What would that book
Oh,
be about?
it's so interesting. You know, I love. I love the personal journeys of like getting. I love entrepreneurships. I think I'd write about that, but I think I'd write about more about the nuts and bolts of it.
Yeah.
I'm a student of the psychology of it. I say that on one end, but then I also say, like, if I'm looking at fun stuff, I'm like, I love the mountain bike, I love the engineering of the components of mountain biking, I love fly fishing. I kind of like stuff that's hard, right? I don't maybe know why, but I like stuff that's hard. So I would probably, get down into the weeds about why that is, and why I think that's a good thing. It's funny because now I'm obviously a dad, and I find myself teaching my kids like the hard ways because I want to prep them for the future versus shelter them from the future. So I want them to go through it the hard way so they can feel that, you
Yes.
know?
They don't,
So
yeah,
interesting.
they won't appreciate it unless they feel it themselves.
Right.
Like I totally relate to what you're talking about.
Yeah.
It's like, yeah, you want them to do things smarter, like, than you did, but at the same time, okay, you don't want them to like not experience life. So that way, when it happens to them,
Yeah.
like, they're not shocked. Like, I want my kid I want him to feel stress. I want him to feel what it's like to push himself. I want him to feel like what
Yeah.
it's like to have to go do this and figure this out, or, master the skill or whatever it is, because I
Yep.
see it, like, you can see them you can see the information just being processed totally
Right.
different when,
Right. Well, and their
when,
floors, like I recently thought about this, is our floors are a lot higher than what we really have. And what I mean by that is, like, we live in a phenomenal country where everything
oh
we
yeah,
have is like in complete luxury, that our
oh yeah,
floor, like, need versus want, like, you don't need that. I'm like, I don't need any of this crap. Are you kidding me? I don't
no,
need any of it. But
oh
I
yeah,
want it, right? So my floor, I don't need much to live, right?
same here.
So pulling the trigger and taking a risk on something, the consequence is minimal once you come to terms with your floor is actually a lot lower than what you want it to be. And so I try to teach my kids that, because they're like, oh, if I don't get a snack right now, I'm going to lose my mind. And it's like, you realize you can go like days without eating. You're probably going to be good.
Yeah.
you know, it's just hilarious how that happens. And so they're raising their floor, and I kind of appreciate that too. But it's just funny, psychology of that.
Yeah, I think we could do a whole podcast on that, because
Right.
it's even dangerous. It's even dangerous as you become more successful too, right? Because it's easy. It's like finding this balance, like, and for me, whether it's finance or whatever it may be, um, I have a certain level that I won't let myself go up to, because I want to make sure I'm staying responsible,
Yeah.
disciplined, and I'm using that money the right way. But also, like, even when I'm with my business, I'm always trying to do something that makes myself a little bit uncomfortable,
Hmm.
and sometimes a lot uncomfortable, because it's easy if we slip into that comfort zone to let our floor, right? To just all of a sudden it's here, and then it's like,
Oh,
yeah, like
yep.
it's so I think that would be another series, a fun series, a fun
Yeah.
podcast.
Yep.
Um, one of the one of the things that I kind of just want to maybe end off with, um, you're obviously very much a tech entrepreneur. Why don't you walk through just a few productivity hacks,
Yeah.
that you've seen from a technology standpoint, that
Yep.
you recommend to your clients when they come to you?
Yeah, it's interesting question, because to me it's all about habits. Like, technology is great, but there's so much technology that
Yeah,
we end up saying, okay, I'm just going to revert back to old behavior because it's
right.
too long for us to learn it or to use it. So I always start by prefacing this, no matter if you're going to try something like a new technology or a new habit, new system of some sort, you got to give it time to see if it naturally, works into your habits. And if it does, then it works, right? And to me, like, I love the tools that are already in front of us every single day, right? So instead of trying to like seek something that you don't currently have, like learned about what you currently do have and if there's a functionality that could help you. So like iPhone, my most recent one is like focus time. I don't know why this is like blowing people's mind, but like focus time, the new setting on Apple is huge, unbelievably huge.
That is huge. That is
Yeah.
huge. Oh yeah.
And you could do so much with that. And then somebody in one of these groups I'm a part of recommended like the shortcuts inside of the iPhone. And I'm like, you realize that what they're explaining there is free and is hugely impactful. So just take 15 minutes, see what's possible with some of those free tools, and you'd be surprised what you could make more efficient in your life just by that, right?
That's awesome. How about when somebody's like using like a CRM and maybe they have a CRM and they have a system, they have some lead generation happening. They have maybe like a lead follow-up system, a social media app,
Yep.
like, and none of them are like in sync with each other. Where does somebody start there?
It's a good question there too. So I'm a fan of like, think with the end in mind. And so instead of like walking through and just picking things off the shelf that look good to you, you got to take a mental break from screens and write down the goal of what you're trying to accomplish, and then pick your head up and then find the tech that fits that path. Right. Versus the other way where you're picking the shiniest object or what other people are using and you're wondering why it doesn't work.
Yeah, I think that's why mind map. We're like big on mind maps. Where like I used to do it like what you just said is we just sign up to whatever like looked good because it was exciting at the time. But now what we do is we had called our sales acceleration blueprint, where we say, okay, here's our database. What are all the tools that we need to work and nurture our database? And then, okay, here's lead generation. What do we want to do for lead generation? And we do that for every core area: lead follow-up, social media and video marketing, and there's still some overlap in there. Lead conversion, and then business clients. Systems, past client, client experience, and then we just kind of like. So what we do is we've learned to never make a move unless it's strategic. Yeah. And when somebody comes to us, or like, let's say I go to an event, now my team holds me accountable. Yep. Like I'll go to an event, or I'll go wherever.
Specific things you got to accomplish that are hitting that map, hitting that vision, right?
Right. Yeah. And they'll ask me and they'll say, okay, how does this help me understand? And this is how we keep each other accountable. How does this fit into the sales acceleration blueprint? How does this fit into the blueprint of what we're trying to accomplish right now? And so sometimes it might be more like, and what I've learned is like, one of the things that my mentor told me too, he goes, Isaiah, you can do that. You just might not, maybe you should just do it right, not do it right now. Yeah. Right? Like get to this phase or this level, or master this first, or get this integrated and then that, or.
Yeah, there's a path to that. You can't do it all at once.
Right.
And you've got to come to terms with, it ain't going to be that right out of the gate or anytime soon.
Yeah. And I think when it comes to like systems and like marketing and sales, and like people have this thing in their mind. They're like, if I can just get it all set up, I'll never have to do anything again. Like, and while there's a lot of truth to that, I think we need to reframe this conversation about systems in our mind to say, no. It's not that there's no end. It's not going to end. It's just going to help you get to the next level, because you're still going to have to go and optimize.
It's a check off the list.
Right. But the list,
it's not a list.
Right. It's a master list. And so
that's your vision. And you gotta like hit the pillars, right? So if you don't even know what the pillars are, write down the pillars, and then it's just like, write down each of those pillars and what you're going to do to accomplish the vision that you want. And I just went through each one of them all the way through to where, we're 50%, if not less, of the end goal. This is a long-term play. Yes. Thankfully you're going to be in real estate for the next 20, 30, 40, however long years. You don't need to solve it right now.
And you can't. It's impossible.
Yeah.
Take it one step at a time. So good. Jeff, how do people find you if they want to use your services? 30 seconds about what problem you're solving, and then how do they find you?
The problem that we're solving is a lot of this, like navigating this space by itself is a trial and error by
Yeah.
nature.
Yeah.
And I want to help avoid that so you're not wasting money. And waste isn't the right word because it's actually educational money, but I don't want you to have to spend that time on
Yeah.
things that aren't going to align with what your goal is. So literally the best value I could provide is like a consult on your current tech stack, where you're going and how we're going to accomplish that. Right. And so literally the best thing to do is email me. You can DM me on Facebook and we can have that consult now. And then we could say, okay, I got what you're looking to do. Let's plug in the pieces that are going to accomplish that. And if they fit, they fit. If they don't, they don't. Like, we don't need to make a paycheck here. It's literally just making sure that it aligns with what your goal is.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
It's awesome. Yeah. You guys have done some great things for some very, very high powered teams. You've helped us, and great resource. So definitely make sure you reach out to Jeff if you want to help streamline your process systems and come up with a really awesome roadmap. And thanks for telling us your backstory.
Yeah, of course.
Jeff, and what you got going on. And any last, with everything that's changing, do you have any, maybe like just one piece of advice you could give before we wrap it up with everything happening in the market right now?
Yeah, just come from instead of react, respond. And I think that little saying has stuck with me for a long time, of like, we can't control our initial reaction on stuff, but we can control our response, right? So hold your reaction and response. Come from it from like a 10,000-foot view and make an educational decision, but don't do it so much that it's costing you time, right? Pull the trigger, move on, and then reevaluate, right? So I'm here. We've got tons of resources. We want to make sure people are not playing with all these different things, that they're honing in. And I'm more than happy to have that combo with anybody to do it. So
awesome. That's great. Well, thanks, Jeff. So folks, if you have enjoyed this podcast, share it with anybody that you think that needs to hear it. And then also too, if you are looking for the kind of like a digital marketing platform where you can get all of your digital marketing materials and then launch campaigns literally with a click of a button, have some artificial intelligence do a lot of the work for you to generate leads, generate new listing opportunities. And you can check out our platform. You go to www.runfreetrial.com and you can check out Run 360, and then you'll be given a free consultation along the way. And sometimes we end up reaching back out to Jeff to help us with more complex projects.
Yeah.
And that's why we like working with Jeff. So Jeff, thanks a lot. Appreciate it.
Yeah, man, I appreciate it. It's awesome chatting with you, dude.
Awesome.
All right. Take care.
Sounds good. See you. Cool. All right. Sweet. So sooner than later too, I don't know if you have an affiliate program or not.
Yeah.
But I want to try to hammer that out, because what ends up happening is we'll get people to a certain level, and then they'll have other stacks that we just don't want to mess with to integrate. And I think it'd be a perfect segue. Ben Lang is like one example of that.
Totally.
A good example of that. So
yeah, we need to do that for sure. It's definitely on the list, and we want to make sure we get everybody taken care of on that front. So I appreciate you, just kind of holding me accountable on some of that too.
Sure.
So,
sure. And if there's anything that we need to do to move forward, like if there's a document, or if you want to have another meeting just to talk it out. And it's less about the money than it is just having something in place. And then I think that I'd like to just keep figure out how to work more strategic together with these high level clients that we have.
Yeah, for sure. Because it's a complex deal with everything, right? So we just want to make sure we're handling it with some white glove, personal. So if there's anything I can do to help you guys, man, I'm totally aligned with how you operate your business and how you're coaching. So I'm in, man, whatever you need.
All right. Appreciate it. Sounds good.